Xiaomi is the ultimate copycat. Don't believe me? Let me show you. This is an iPhone X and this is Xiaomi Mi 8. This is Apple TV and this is Xiaomi TV. But that's not it. There are a bunch of other products like the Xiaomi AirDots inspired by the AirPods, the Xiaomi router inspired by the Magic Trackpad, and they copied even the UI and the launch event. But even after being a follower, then Xiaomi overtook Apple and became the second largest smartphone manufacturer in the world with more than 685 million active users. Why? Because they offer all these products at a fraction of price. But how do they do it? Simple answer is, while Apple do years of research and hard work in figuring out what design will work, Xiaomi just use that output and spend a fraction of that effort to release similar products. But that's not the whole story. Over the past decade, they have gone from releasing copycat budget-friendly phones to producing a huge lineup that includes everything from wearables to smart home devices to even electric vehicles, often with a design language that could rival Apple and Samsung. This is the story of Xiaomi. Alright, so here's how we're going to structure this video. First, we're going to talk about why and how they started. Second, how they scaled and created their own identity. And finally, we'll explore Xiaomi's emerging ventures like proprietary chips and electric vehicles. But let's get started by going back in 2010, tracing where it all began in Beijing, China. This is Lei Jun. He's also called the Steve Jobs of China. He was a software engineer and spent around 2 decades leading a company named Kingsoft, which made a very successful version of Microsoft Office. Then, he resigned from Kingsoft as CEO in 2008 and joined UC Web as the chairman, which was a very well-known browser company. He admired Steve Jobs and Apple's focus on seamless design and user experience. However, he believed that Apple's premium pricing excluded a large portion of potential users, which is kind of true. So, his goal was to replicate Apple's product philosophy but make it affordable for the masses. And for this, he assembled a small team of 10 engineers to fill this gap in the market. At the time, smartphones were quickly becoming popular and essential. Apple launched their iPhone 4 and Samsung introduced their first Galaxy S smartphone. But these flagship models from major brands were too expensive for many consumers. On the other hand, cheaper Chinese smartphones were unreliable and lacked good design and aesthetic appeal. Xiaomi set out to strike a balance. They decided to offer solid features, a decent build quality, and an accessible price point. But before going all in on the smartphone itself, Xiaomi decided to focus on the soul of the smartphone, the operating system. Most of the smartphones of that time were using Android, and software was one of Lei Jun's strong suit. So, he decided that for Xiaomi phones, they will create a brand new Android-based OS and they named it MIUI. What set MIUI apart was not just the user-friendly interface, but the way it evolved through the community feedback. Xiaomi asked people to propose ideas for new features or adjustments, and then company's developers often integrated these suggestions into weekly updates. This gave people a sense of ownership and built up a following even before they launched the first physical device. And that device was the Mi 1. It was introduced in 2011 and offered a very competitive hardware at a fraction of the typical cost. It had a plastic body and simple LCD glass screen. The look was not revolutionary, but it was intentional. Xiaomi prioritized practical elements such as battery life, stable software, and robust performance, rather than spending extra on premium materials that would drive up the cost. While that meant that these smartphones didn't stand out visually, they were reliable and remarkably affordable for the value they offered. But the actual copying of design started with the Mi 4. The Mi 4, which looked a lot like the iPhone 5. Even Lei Jun himself said that he went to the same companies that made the metallic framed iPhone 5 to see what they could do for him. And you can clearly see the reference in the design of Mi 4. The metal frame with 45-degree chamfers, speaker grills, earphones, headphone jack, everything seemed inspired from the iPhone 5. But why do they need to copy? Well, at first, it was a quick way to get noticed. Apple's design and branding had proven consumer appeal. By adopting that style, Xiaomi saved on the costly and time-intensive process of designing from scratch. They could concentrate on manufacturing, supply chain, and software refinements. Initially, that came across as budget clones, but by selling products online in flash sales, cutting out retail middlemen, and keeping profit margins extremely low, Xiaomi offered consumers nearly the same look and feel as Apple at a fraction of cost. And that's how their earliest phones and devices gained traction, especially in emerging markets like in India, where brand recognition mattered a lot less than affordability. But copying can only take you so far. Xiaomi had bigger plans. So they continued to make and introduce these budget smartphones, but in parallel, they started a whole new lineup of premium smartphones with original design elements. And they called it the Mi Mix series. It featured a nearly bezel-less display, which was a trend that major brands were only beginning to explore. It also had a polished ceramic back, a material which is typically associated with niche or luxury smartwatches. This was not just a marketing gimmick. The Mi Mix delivered real design innovation, from its unconventional front camera placement to its emphasis on maximizing screen real estate. It showed that Xiaomi was not just in the market to follow and copy, but intended to lead, especially when it came to merging design and functionality at a more accessible price point. Subsequent models like the Mi Mix 2 and Mi Mix 3 refined these ideas further, improving camera position and materials, while keeping the cost significantly lower than other brands. Over time, Xiaomi broadened this approach and applied a similar mindset to mid-range phones by borrowing some design cues from these flagship series smartphones. This shift transformed Xiaomi from a budget-only brand into a real competitor on the international stage. But the impact of Xiaomi's evolving design philosophy was not just limited to smartphones. Then they moved to other smartphone-related devices like earbuds, tablets, watches, and laptops. And again, approach was the same. Copy it first to get the initial success and then innovate in design to make it like Xiaomi. Like the AirDots look like the AirPods. The TV box look like the Apple TV box. The laptops look like the MacBooks, and the Mi Pad Pro still looks like the iPad Pro. And not just the device, even the accessories like the Xiaomi's keyboard and pen for the pad looks very similar to the iPad's Magic Keyboard and Apple Pencil. But this is where Xiaomi and Apple parted ways. See, Apple can only launch a limited number of products because they focus on each one of them to make them perfect. But that's not the case with Xiaomi. So they decided that with the extra sales and the revenue, they will expand the Xiaomi ecosystem, and then they started designing everything possible. Smart TVs, air conditioners, washing machines, heaters, air purifiers, and much more. Basically, anything that you can see or need in the house, Xiaomi has that product in their portfolio. If you don't believe me, do one thing. Download Xiaomi Home app in your phone and then go to Add Devices and look at all the devices that you can add. Now, of course, most of them are not available outside China. But if you look at the design of these devices, they are very minimal with clean lines, simple shapes, and neutral colors. Like look at this air purifier. It comes in simple square or round shapes. The holes for the air passage have fading patterns. And the screen is also very simple and circular in shape. And the same kind of design language can be seen across products like the air conditioner, humidifier, vacuum cleaner, and the kettle. So at this point, Xiaomi has a massive range of products like Samsung, inspired by design like Apple. But of course, they didn't stop here. They expanded into lifestyle products like backpacks, suitcases, trimmers, hair dryers, screwdrivers, mattresses, and even pillows. I mean, what kind of tech company make pillows and screwdrivers? But that's the thing. Before, they made smartphones affordable. And now, they're taking everyday products and making them a bit better by improving their design, and then they sell them as premium products. So in one way, they've now become Apple of everyday non-tech products. Does that make sense? And then recently, Xiaomi did one thing that Apple was trying to do for a long time but couldn't, and that is to make a car. Apple has been working on its car project called the Project Titan from 2014. Rumors surfaced about sleek, self-driving concepts and prototypes, but so far they haven't released a single vehicle. Some says that Apple struggled with scaling automotive manufacturing, and others mention that leadership changes has shifted priorities. And finally, in 2024, they shut it down. But Xiaomi executed it perfectly. As usual, they didn't want to make the perfect car like Apple, so they took inspiration from one of the best cars, Porsche Taycan. The SU7 borrows a lot of its design elements like the body shape, roofline, back and front design from the Porsche Taycan. And then they benefited from the Chinese motor and battery technology. And they also got extra subsidies from the Chinese government for EV manufacturing. And all these things came together and Xiaomi again disrupted another premium segment like EVs by introducing a car for just about $30,000. So they're still staying true to their premium for less mantra. And the one upcoming move that will change the future for Xiaomi is their in-house chip development. Apple has done this for years with the A series and M series processors, giving them tighter control over performance and efficiency. Xiaomi wants a similar advantage. By designing chips in-house, they can optimize how hardware and software works together, creating a more closed ecosystem just like Apple, but probably at a lower cost. If they succeed, expect Xiaomi's devices from phones to tablets to TVs and even cars to integrate more seamlessly than ever before. Ultimately, their journey shows us that how copying can evolve into something unique when combined with lean manufacturing, clever marketing, and a willingness to tackle every product category possible. Whether you call them copycats or innovators, one thing is certain, Xiaomi has changed the way how we think about premium design, proving it doesn't always have to come with a premium price. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to watch more videos about design and science behind the products. I'll see you next time. Thank you.